Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another exciting session with Career and Professional Development at WGU. My name is Hank, and I am an Employer Engagement Manager in our Career Services department. We are excited to have a great session today, and Andy Lombardo to join us for another Cyber Week session, Cybersecurity and K-12. I'm in an era where every organization is a technology organization. Our K-12 school systems have been crucial and challenging in the front lines of cybersecurity and securing students' data, protecting our networks, and preparing the next generation of tech leaders is more important than ever. So today we will hear from Andy as he share his story and share perspective of working in cybersecurity and in a school district and giving opportunity to connect with his fellow night owls. Please join me in welcome Andy Lombardo, the Director of Technology for Marysville School District.
Right. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you for joining us today, Andy. I know we connected a few weeks ago talking about your career journey and what WGU means to you. I want to give you an opportunity to just introduce yourself before we jump into questions, and we'll start from there.
Cool. Yeah, my name is Andy Lombardo. I'm a tech director at a school system in East Tennessee, and I've been in education for over 20 years now. I started my career as a classroom teacher, and so I did 10 years of time in middle school, teaching middle school grammar, English, spelling, writing, all those kinds of things. And I planned on teaching high school literature, so like teaching classics to high school students, preparing them for college, and reading all the greats, and then ended up in Grammarland for 10 years and loved it. So middle schoolers have a very special place in my heart. Usually when I will introduce myself, or used to introduce myself as a middle school teacher, everyone's like, oh, that takes a special kind of person. And it absolutely does, because if you are crazy enough to love middle schoolers, you need to be with them. So I did my time there and then moved into my current role.
All right, great. And I definitely understand about working with middle schoolers. I have a middle schooler myself, so I appreciate that, and hats off to all middle school teachers out there. So Andy, just to kind of start us off, with your journey from being an English teacher and transitioning to being the Director of Technology, which is a fascinating career transition, what was the pivotal moment in your life that made you realize you want to move from the classroom into tech?
Yeah, so for me, that background as a middle school teacher, the downside to getting middle schoolers is I think that you can really only take a finite amount of working with middle schoolers before you either burn out or have to retool or rejuvenate or something. And so at the end of 10 years of working with middle school, super rewarding, but also very, very draining. And so at the end of my 10th year, I was really looking around for like what kinds of things I could do that isn't teaching middle school. And so I was looking at even like, teaching younger grades, science, or upper grades, something else. And so I was just really kind of looking all around. And I'd been in every school I'd ever worked in, I'd always kind of been the de facto tech person. So like even when I was a student intern, like I made a school's first webpage for them when I was, doing my student teaching. And so had always been kind of like falling in that tech track, but didn't realize, while I was in college that a technologist in a school was an actual job. And so as I discovered that was a job through my years teaching, when I figured I was done in the classroom, that was really where I looked to go in that direction. And so I was very fortunate because at the time our district was moving to a one-to-one laptop program for students. And so we were kind of upping the resources that we were providing for schools from the technology level. And so there was a position for usually I call like a technology coaching position, where your job is basically to be kind of the educational technology expert for the building and teach teachers and students how to use different technologies and how to be dynamic and innovative and things like that. And so when I left the classroom, I did that for 3 years. I was a technology instructional coach, which kind of had that role of teaching teachers about, we got all these laptops in the building now. Here's what we can do with them. Here are the tools we can use. So like everything from scoping out software and hardware to also running a help desk. And so we had a student run help desk where I taught students how to, break down machines, change screens, change keyboards, all that kind of stuff. And so my day was kind of split between kind of those two areas of, repair and teaching, teaching teachers how to use technology. And so that was kind of that transitional moment for me. And after 3 years of doing the instructional coaching, the position for director of technology opened in our district, and I was kind of the opinion that I didn't think I was ready for it yet, and I had just started WGU at that point. And so I didn't feel like I was ready for it, but knew that I didn't want to work for somebody else doing it because I felt like I could grow into the position. And so thankfully, I've been around for about 10 years since.
All right. And just wanted to kind of piggyback off of what you said. I'm not ready for it. Someone who is looking to kind of transition in a career, what some advice would you give them if they feel they may not be ready for a role? Is there anything that you would like to point out that could help them find that inner person to tell them, hey, go for it?
Yeah, and that's so there's kind of an adage I live by. It's a little cliche, but that idea that perfect is the enemy of good and perfect is the enemy of progress. And so that idea that you just need to step out and do something. So I know, I had some friends who were in the department at the district technology area that basically had to talk me into applying for the tech director role because I solidly felt that I wasn't prepared and I wasn't equipped for it. And they talked me into it that I could become more equipped over time, that right person, right seat, that it would work out. And so that taking that first step, kind of that's the scariest part, whether it's a job or a project, and especially in IT stuff. A lot of the times when you're trying to differentiate yourself from other people in the job market, the way that you kind of brand and market yourself in terms of, if I'm looking at application for like a technician, and one person just has a standard resume with their work history and everything else, and the other person has been blogging or doing YouTube videos or kind of sharing their knowledge with the world and kind of taking risk to share what they know, I really move that to the top of the stack. So just having the guts to get out there and just do something, take the first step, even if it's not polished, even if it's not perfect, and kind of grow into the role and find the resources you need, find the community you need, and then just grow from there.
Yeah, I love that. And as far as just when you mentioned kind of being flexible and leveraging some of those skills that you have, wanted to kind of dive in there as far as you go into WGU and some of the things that help. So for someone that is considering a similar career change, can you just share how WGU's approach to learning help you bridge that gap and your previous experience in the roles?
Yeah, so just generically and stereotypically, in schools, when you have a tech director or IT person, because depending on the size of the district, our district is a small to medium district with about 5,500 kids and about 1,000 staff members. But there are a lot of districts of under 1,000 kids who have a single IT person who is everything in that IT department. And so, just lost track of the question. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
WG, I got it.
Yeah.
So one of the things is in K-12 technology, the two types of people who usually fill this kind of role are either a teacher who is strong on the instructional side, who is now in charge of technology, or someone technical from outside who doesn't have an educational or instructional background. And so I was really conscious that I didn't want to be pigeonholed as I'm just a teacher who's in charge of tech, but I also knew that I wasn't, a technical person. So I wanted to really blend the best of those two worlds of bringing, my instructional game, but then leveling it up with the technical expertise and know-how. And so I'd been completely self-taught on everything educational. So I'd, most of my IT background had been in web design and graphic design. And then kind of the troubleshooting part came from I always had to make the systems I was using to do graphic design and web design work. And so I always had to, troubleshoot networking and systems and things like that. And so that was all really just hands-on, which is great experience. But I knew that I had a ton of gaps, especially if I was going to be in charge of a department, and I say a department, but at the time it was the director of technology and a technician. So it was really just two people. But that also kind of upped the game that if only two people are in charge of technology for the entire district, I really needed to fill in those knowledge gaps. And so I'd already done a master's at WGU in curriculum and instruction as part of my teaching career. And so I was familiar with WGU with the competency-based approach, and it really appealed to me in general. And so that was the first place I looked to start trying to fill that knowledge gap, because I was the traditional path is people talk about either you need experience or education or certifications. And I felt like I had experience, but I didn't have education or certifications. And WGU kind of blended those two where I could, get the book learning from WGU, but also work on, concrete certifications that could, display, resume stuff, to build up that resume, show that I've got skills. And so that really appealed to me that I didn't have to choose between education and certifications. I could do both at the same time. And so I jumped into the bachelor's in cybersecurity and just loved it. So like during that time period, I was consuming all cyber media I could. So it was, there were tons of great books out at the time. It was after Stuxnet had become public. In the middle of all the Snowden stuff, Mr. Robot was on TV, Darknet Diaries was airing. So there was just tons and tons of great cyber content being produced. And I just ate it up. And so like while I went in to get a more holistic IT view, I really gravitated to that cybersecurity kind of side of things. And so that was kind of how WGU fit into that process. And it was, don't want to sound like an advertising campaign, but had a family, didn't have time to like go to a program. I would have to spend all of my Saturdays for 2 years doing something. And so that, being able to just wake up a couple hours early or stay up a couple hours after the family went to bed, that really, really appealed to me. And so I was able to kind of, work through at my own pace and just love the model.
Great, yeah, and it's okay. We love those advertisements for WGU. So being supported, that's why we reach out to our alum to kind of share their experiences, because real world people that actually completed their degree and share what it took to complete that is something that we value, especially in career services, hearing those stories. Staying on track into that line of those skills worked with and what helped you through your WGU journey. What are some soft skills that would help someone that is looking and getting that cybersecurity role? What are some things that you would have? Would you let them know that these are some of the things that you should look at?
Yeah, so I think the biggest soft skill, because technology has that kind of stereotype of the nerdy, bookish, introverted kind of person, and that communication is one of the most valuable skills for a technologist because you're frequently in your role having to translate what's happening in the technical world to non-technical stakeholders. And so being able to kind of understand what's happening technically deep enough that you can simplify it and communicate that to others, either through, spoken word or through writing. Email is the least favorite thing that I do, but probably spend more time a day doing that than anything else. And so, being able to harness those communication skills to, make the technical work pay off. So communication is that big umbrella. And then under that as well is also kind of that part of, like I mentioned about, branding yourself and marketing yourself, also being able to kind of share that information. So like being able to take something technical, and even if you think it's not something big, like say you set up a sim in your home lab and you're just, practicing, making detection rules and getting alerts and things like that. You may look at that and be like, it's a really simple project, like, well, simple. But depending on where you are, you may think that's, it's too simple. No one would want to learn about that from me. But really, there are people who are behind wherever you are, and there are people ahead of wherever you are. So, pick what you're doing, pick what you're interested in, and then find ways to share that with the community at large, because they're, cyber and technology are everywhere, but everybody's really kind of a niche role. So like K-12 technology, there aren't a lot of people making content specifically for K-12. And there aren't a lot of vendors creating technical things for K-12 aside from like instructional or student products. And so, finding that niche that fits you and your interest and being able to share what you know with that group to help other people and kind of lift everybody else up.
And that's excellent. I know we briefly spoke on different niches and school districts and cybersecurity. And that's why one of the reasons why I reached out to you, because I thought it was something unique that students and our alum that may not look into K-12 for opportunities, but there are unique opportunities there for them.
Yeah,
Right.
and I would say one of the best things. So I mentioned how small the district is and how large the environment is. The biggest downside is that we can't compete, as a public institution. We can't compete with large corporations or, the higher paying tech jobs. But what we do offer is for people who are trying to get into the industry, there's a lot more leeway and ability to get your hands dirty with a lot of different things very quickly. And so I had someone 5 years ago who was a student intern who actually he had been in my seventh grade English class years before. And then as a senior in high school, he was a technology intern my first year as the director. And then we hired him. He went to community college. We hired him as soon as he finished community college to be just a part-time technician. And he's my sysadmin now. And so because I was able to say, okay, I trust you. I know that you know how to find things out. Here's this project, run with it. And he would take it, become the subject matter expert, and just get tons of experience. And so, I hate the role of, hiring people, training them, and them leaving, but I also see that as kind of a sign of success. Because I've had people go on to work at, Power School or be IT managers for other businesses who started out as like a tier one technician with us, and we were able to give them the opportunities and things to work with. So that's the biggest perk to K-12, I think, for someone getting started, is you have a lot of leeway and a lot of things to get dirty with really quickly.
That's really amazing that you had a chance to teach someone in seventh grade and then follow up whether you're interning and then you're hiring. So that progression there and just kind of seeing them grow. And I know that hearing from a teacher perspective, that's something beneficial and that's very important to you. So kudos on that. Now, just kind of jumping back into it, can you just tell me what is a typical day for a director of technology in school district? Mr. Lombardo, you're talking to teachers, you're talking to students, admin. What's a typical day look like that for you?
Yeah, and it can be radically different depending on the school systems. Like I mentioned, when I started, it was a department of two. And so there were a lot of days at that point when any given day, I could be in a meeting with school board members, or I could be crawling under desk running cables, or I could be pulling Cat6 cable through ceiling grids. Any number of things going on in a day. And after growth in our department, so we have evolved from 2 people 10 years ago to 7 full-time staff members now. That includes myself, a sysadmin, a network administrator, a head technician, a field technician, and a couple of school-based technicians. And so my job is really transformed from being that, like, I'm not crawling under a desk most days now. So, which is both good and bad. Some days I'm like, oh, I wish I could just crawl under a desk instead of responding to emails. But yeah, so a lot of my time now is spent kind of with the long-term planning and the strategic planning, and setting the goals so that I've got other people on my team that I can work with and delegate with to kind of make those plans happen. And so whereas before, if we wanted to implement a new safeguard or program or something, once upon a time it was me. I was the one talking to the vendors. I was the one doing the integrations, the implementations. And so now it's kind of at a point to where I can work with other people and say, okay, we want something in this space. Can you go out and find a product that does this, or find an open source project that does this, or find a service that takes care of this, and can kind of have a more guiding role and have people on my team will be, I really believe that, in not micromanaging and, the positives of delegating and kind of growing people. And so it's really rewarding for me to be able to say, okay, here's our project, here's the vision, and then help people help me execute it. And so that's what a lot of my day is coordinating team members, doing more personnel kind of issues, working on right now, everybody is, AI is everything right now. And so school districts are really maybe ahead of the curve a little bit on planning for how AI is implemented ethically and used. But there's still, a long way to go in terms of creating policy and determining how teachers are going to use it, how students are going to use it. And so a lot of time spent planning kind of, any given day I'm writing policy, responding to emails. Can't stress the responding to emails enough. I'm still in our ticket system, so I might be, tagged in on a tier 2 or tier 3 ticket. Just lots and lots of variety. So there's never, I start the day with a plan every day, and I'll maybe have like 5 or 6 things, and I usually check off one, and have completely diverted and done other things the entire rest of the day.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know getting control of that email box, especially being out or working on a couple other projects and getting there, definitely is something a lot of people don't look forward to. But in that role, you have to answer those so you can get some problems fixed. Now, you mentioned AI and school districts being ahead of that curve. What are some significant cybersecurity challenges you face in K-12 that may be just a little different than working for like a corporate or a government role?
Yeah, so one of the biggest challenges in K-12 in general is shadow IT. And so teachers by nature are hired and trusted, and a huge part of their role is to be an innovator and to be constantly coming up with new ways to engage students. And so that really encourages a spirit of go out and find the tool that works best. And so that philosophy and that model doesn't really work well with third-party risk management or protecting sensitive data and things like that, because there may be an awesome tool, but it may be hosted in a country that we don't have good data sharing policies with, or with a company that uses the data for things that we're prohibited from using. So like a common K-12 thing is we can't have students receive targeted advertising if they're under 13. And so we have to make sure that we're not creating accounts for them that's for a site that's going to serve them targeted advertising, and then content filtering and all those kinds of things. So that's really that's a big part of it, is trying to get a handle on giving teachers enough freedom to be able to find those tools and innovate, but have it innovate and integrate it in a way where we have visibility, we have control over the data. There was a time, I mentioned one of the things about not feeling ready for the role. There was a time when I didn't worry about data retention or data classification and things like that. And now, like, those are the things that keep me awake at night, is thinking about, okay, I've got, teachers with all this sensitive information in their Google Drive or their OneDrive or their SharePoint. And, maybe they've created links to share with anyone instead of share with people in the organization or share with specific people. And so trying to rein in all that data, because we warehouse a ton of sensitive data on students, from health records to grades, scores, disciplinary records, all those kinds of things. And if a teacher or administrator goes out and just finds a tool that does what they want, without doing kind of due diligence to see if it's safe for our data, it's a real challenge for us.
Right. And I know working with teachers, just to kind of talk a little bit about that, is there anything that you would recommend for anyone who's current teacher, like that's a current teacher or aspiring teacher, to learn about, even if they weren't worrying about cybersecurity or tech?
Yeah, I think the data privacy piece is probably the biggest. And that's maybe because that's the thing I'm focusing on the most right now in my current position, is that, when I started, we had, I think, maybe 6 or 7 different software vendors that we used in the district for student facing things or things that house student data. And now we have upwards of 200 or 300. And so, I can do as much as I can to kind of track what people are visiting, where they're going, what services are being used, kind of from going through firewall logs and content filter logs and things like that. But from the teacher point of view, being able to take that extra step and say, okay, before I create an account for a student to do this, should I? Is it wise for me to give this bundle of student information to this vendor? And it, I don't expect teachers to have all the answers to that, but at least to have that as part of their thought process before they use a new tool. And if they're not sure, that's the point where you tag in your IT department or your data privacy officer, or any of those kinds of people.
And I love that, just them having that opportunity to connect with their IT department, or even just having someone to talk through some of these things that's changing. Because, and as we all know, the IT world is changing daily. So being able to have someone to outreach to with school and patients that come through, definitely beneficial for that.
Yeah, and IT departments have that reputation for being the department of no. And a lot of times it's not I try to guard against just no for no's sake. Like that doesn't help anyone. That doesn't help innovate. And so a lot of times when you have those discussions with teachers with it's a no, but this is the reason why, let's see if we can find something that does what you want, but doesn't have this risk or this um, inherent flaw that we could bypass.
Yeah, and I think just with having knowing what we have been through during COVID and teachers having to catch up and get up to speed with different changes. I think just being open and available with with your department definitely kind of probably puts them at ease and knowing, hey, we're actually going to get an answer versus a no every time.
Right.
Definitely beneficial. So jump down here about with students. For students that are looking to just kind of get into cybersecurity today, what is something important and emerging trends or tech that they should pay close attention to, and why might that be a game changer for
So I mean, the first stock answer, I don't want to talk a lot about AI, but AI
them?
is obviously, the emerging thing that's really caught a lot of people's focus right now. And, there's all that threat of, is AI taking jobs? Is it replacing jobs? And obviously, yes, we've seen all kinds of layoffs and downsizing from big tech that they're crediting to AI and saying, because of AI, we were able to, downsize this amount. But I think the next tier of that is once they've kind of stabilized that, the workforce, it's really going to become a matter of who can harness AI to their benefit the most and who can maximize their work output. There's that idea of a 10 times or 10x engineer that, the person that does the work of 10 engineers. And so AI can really up that level for a lot of people. But if everyone is using it, but you're not, then you've got that kind of inherent kind of, you're being handicapped by a lack of a tool that you could be using. So on the one hand, there's that. And then the second, I think I'm really interested personally in IAM, identity and access management. And so I think passkeys are kind of going to be that next big emerging technology. So they're, for a long time, we talked about, at least in K-12, about MFA and the importance of MFAing all the things. And it wasn't until about 3 or 4 years ago when cyber insurance really started hammering the requirement of having MFA for staff that schools really started doing. I think we jumped from like 22% of students were doing MFA, I think 4 years ago. It's up to about 70 or 80% now. So now that we've made that jump to MFA, we're starting to see a lot of token theft attacks and MFA bypass attacks. And so I think being on that front end of, how do passkeys work? How can you secure identity? How can you make your accounts phish resistant? I think that's going to be another an upcoming trend.
Okay, all right, great. And so I know with you working in your role as the director of technology, and you were working as a teacher, computer science educator as well. What does the role as a technology teacher play in building a foundation for cybersecurity awareness amongst the students and staff? And why is it critical for your K-12 district?
Yeah, and so I'll let you a little bit behind the K-12 curtain. There's a term in K-12 that is embedded in the curriculum. And so there are a lot of things at a lot of different school systems that when it comes to like, how are you implementing this or how are you educating about this? If you hear the answer is it's embedded in the curriculum, that means they know they're supposed to be doing it and they're assuming someone else is doing it, but there's probably no one doing it. And so those areas like, cybersecurity awareness is one of those areas in a lot of places, cybersecurity awareness, digital citizenship, very vastly important topics in our digital world. But they frequently get pigeonholed into that embedded in the curriculum with everyone's assuming someone else is doing it. And so those technology teachers really, they have a unique perspective and they have a unique influence on students because most of the time, so we have a requirement in our state that students have to take one computer science class. So everybody has to take one computer science. But beyond that, the students in the classes that are the higher level are all students who really want to be there. And so being able to, communicate the importance of different things like MFA, for example, in 2025, it blows my mind that we still have so much pushback for MFA from stakeholders across the board. But and students in particular. And so thinking about how you can, pass on the importance of those things to students in a way that's not them just, sitting through an assembly or sitting through announcements saying, be sure not to click on malicious links. They give that kind of frontline communication, and they get to kind of model that importance for the students.
Yeah. And I know just with emails for me, when I do see those phishing emails, I am the first person to try to click send that off. I know what it looks like. So I definitely understand, especially working with kids, they may see it and I'm like, oh, all right, this is okay. Or even with educators, they may just let it go. But just being aware of that is definitely big. All right. Now, just kind of wrapping us up. Now, what would one piece of advice you would give to our WGU night owls who may be hesitant in making a significant career change that, like yourself, but are passionate and a career with technology or cybersecurity?
Yeah, and so you said one thing, but I'm going to kind of
Oh,
bundle a few together. So first, I'll kind of re-echo that, take that first step, do the thing. There's that adage of, the best time to do something was 10 years ago. The second best time is now, which is really, really, just fabulously true. So go ahead and start making changes towards taking that step. So it's one thing to say, like, someday I'd like to have my bachelor's in IT or my master's or whatever, or get a certain certificate or have this certain life experience. But start doing things to line up getting that to become a reality. And then the second, in terms of like that, choosing a career, choosing where you're pivoting to, I can't overemphasize enough the importance of thinking about like what really gets you jazzed up, like what do you like to do. So like even inside of IT, there are thousands of specializations, and so thinking about like, on the one hand, you may enjoy being a generalist who deals with those thousands of different domains and topics. Or you may be the kind of person who just really wants to be the expert on something. And so you want to pick one narrow lane and you want to focus and go hardcore and go all in. So think about those kinds of things. Like, do you want to be a specialist? Do you want to generalize? And if you're not sure, try a bunch of different things. There are tons of learning platforms out there. So I know when I was going through my master's in cybersecurity, I was using things like Hack the Box, Let's Defend, all kinds of platforms made for, testing out theoretical concepts on a virtual machine, and, just being able to play and see what you like, see what you don't like. And so, like, if you asked me 10 years ago if I'm interested in identity and access management, I would have been like, no, I don't. Name badges, I don't know. But that's what I read for fun now, is like, documentation on, authentication methods. So just think about that, like what kinds of things you want to do, what makes you happy, what makes you excited, and what kind of stuff can you see yourself doing, and then just start taking steps towards making it happen.
okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing that, Andy. Definitely some good takeaways there. Now, just want to let everyone so that concludes the questions that I have for Andy, but I definitely want to open up the floor for anyone who has any questions, or if they would like to come off mute, you can use the raise your hand function and I will give you the opportunity to ask your questions directly. And while we're waiting for people to generate their questions and drop them in the chat, Andy, is there any type of, I know you mentioned Hack the Box and a few others, are there any type of, let's say, books or podcasts or even websites that if someone was interested, they would like to view those things?
Okay, so I don't shamelessly self-promote often, but you gave me a softball that I can do that with. So I co-host a K-12 cybersecurity podcast called the Zero Breach Zone. So that's very super targeted on K-12 cybersecurity. There's another K-12, not cybersecurity, but a K-12 educational podcast or technology education podcast called K-12 Tech Talk that is fantastic. There are lots and lots of books. So English major, I'm kind of addicted to books. I think the one that I've sat with the most recently is called The Phantom CISO by Michal Khan. It's really, really great, especially if you're looking towards, moving into a security leadership position. let's see. Yeah, there's so much good content all over the place now.
And that's great. And what I'll do is I'll include a couple of those in the follow-up email, the podcast. So if anyone is interested and kind of listening in or even just adding it to your rotation of resources that you listen to on a daily, that'll be there for you to take a look at. So I do have a question in the chat from Lance R, and it looks like there's two questions.
Okay.
First one, how long did it take you to complete your bachelor's and the master's degree, then master's degree in cybersecurity?
Yeah, so the bachelor's took me about a year and a half, and maybe closer to 2 years. I think it ended up being a total of 4 terms, but I finished kind of halfway through that last term. And I begged, can you please let me do add-on cloud or something else? And no. But yeah, so the first one, I think I sat with it a good amount of time because I was really interested in learning the content. And so it was one that, like, I was sad when I'd finish classes because I really just really loved it and wanted to learn more about it. And so it took about 2 years. And that was while I was moving into a new position, and so there were a lot of months where I didn't do any work for the month, but then would have to jump back in. So the first one took about 2 years, but could have, if I'd really focused, could have taken a year and a half pretty easily. But I also had a previous bachelor's degree before, so a lot of my gen ed credits were out of the way automatically. So I really just came in focusing on just the cyber part. The master's, so the master's, I swore after I finished the bachelor's I would not do another degree. Not because I don't like, I'm addicted to degrees and education. Like, I'm in K-12 education for a reason. I love school. And so I was like, I can't have more student loans. And so I was like, I'm not going to do it. And then I really got the itch about a year ago to start pursuing maybe doing teaching cyber courses at a local college. And had that hit that paper. I already had 3 degrees at that point, but I hit the paper ceiling of not having a specialized master's in the area that I wanted to teach. And so I was like, okay, I'll go back to WGU. And I made the agreement with myself. It's like, if I can do it in 1 term, I'll make it happen. And so it took me about a year to commit to doing that. And what I did kind of, I don't want to say I cheated the system, but I took those steps. And I knew what certifications were a part of the master's in cyber. And so I started working on those independently. And so I went ahead, and by the time I actually started the master's in cyber, I had enough credits from all the certs to do half of the degree. And so I finished the other half of the degree in about 45 days. And that was 45 days of me, like, locked in a room, just writing papers, making network plans, like, all day, every day. Used a ton of vacation days, used sick days. But I was like, I want to clear that paper ceiling. So it was still super valuable for me. Learned a lot, and the certifications were really a fantastic part. So like I said, I took that step of doing the certs first, then enrolled, and then just smashed it.
And I love that you had a game plan where you were able to kind of map those things out. And I think that answers the second part of Lance's question. Did you feel you were rushed, that you rushed it or spent enough time for it on it? So
Yeah.
definitely that's awesome where you were able to kind of plan those things out. Another question in the chat from Josh. Hi, Andy. You mentioned emerging tech to watch for. I was curious what resources you use to stay up to date on new technologies and trends.
So for me, so I discovered several months ago. So traditionally, social media has been the main place I go to find the links to the articles and things in general. I'm subscribed to about like 5,312 newsletters, but I don't read most of them. And so social media is really kind of that platform. I'd have the people I followed to kind of to get that I could rely on to send me to pertinent information. And about 2 or 3 months ago, I just got fed up with, Facebook and Blue Sky and Twitter, X, all those things. And so deleted all those from my phone. And so now whenever I'm like in doom scroll mode, I'm going through either LinkedIn or YouTube, and I've got a bunch of feeds. Pretty much I've let the algorithm decide for me, who are the content creators that make the things that I like. And so watch a ton of YouTube videos, read a ton of documentation articles. So I'm a Microsoft fanboy. I love Microsoft 365. I spend a lot of time in Microsoft 365. And so I've got a bunch of Microsoft employees that I follow. And whenever they post something, like I'm always kind of on top of it. So Merrill Fernando, if you're interested in identity and access management, he is the dude. So follow him on LinkedIn.
Now I might even have to follow him myself. So definitely I'll take that in. Well, great question. We have another couple other questions. One from Shelby, which is very interesting. Hi, I'm a tech director in a small K-12 school. Our tech staff consists of two, so we wear many hats. I joined the WGU cyber program because I felt that I had a gap in my knowledge in that area. What do you think is the biggest issue in school related to cybersecurity?
So I think kind of two layers. I think one layer would be that data protection, data privacy that I talked about earlier. That's really it's been a soapbox I've been on for 6 or 7 years about the need for us to do that. And it's really only been in the past year or two where states have started to legislate and say, okay, you need to do something about student data privacy. And so I think getting a handle on that is, if your state hasn't made laws about student data privacy yet, they will be soon. And so trying to get on the front end of that and understanding, wrapping your head around, what's involved in protecting student data. And then the second is really device and account security. And so, I've got 5,500 students, and about 5,400 of them at any given time are trying to bypass the security measures we have in place to play games, watch YouTube, look at porn, or talk to AI companion chatbots. So those are the 4 areas that we most commonly see kids trying to bypass. And the sites that pop up for them to do that are the skeeziest sites with the most malware, with awful pop-ups, everything. So trying to manage those accounts and devices and student data privacy.
Great. So we have a question from RJ. Do you have any recommendations for professional networks for recent cyber graduates working in the K-12 that we could connect with?
Yes.
Our professional orgs.
Absolutely. So 2 tiers. So one would be more local. So pretty much every state has an educational technology association. Some states are more active than others, but that is historically been where I meet the most people, where I get the most ideas, where I have the most feedback, the most time to go back and forth on ideas. So like we've got our listserv of people in the association, and we can just, if I run into a problem that I'm stumped on, I can be like, hey, has anyone seen this? And I've usually got responses within an hour from a handful of people. It's like, oh, have you tried this? Have you tried this? And so that's really valuable. And then on a national level, there's a group called the K-12 CISSP. It's the K-12 Security Information Exchange. And they are, as far as I know, the only K-12 specific security focused nonprofit out there. And so what they do is they provide a lot of guidance, especially for smaller districts or districts that don't have as many resources. I know if you're in the space or if you follow federal government stuff, M.Sc has been just an awful roller coaster since January. And so K-12 CISSP is really one of those places that fills the gap on being able to disseminate security information to schools without being tied to a political entity. And then it's great people. So they do an annual conference. Fantastic people. They do monthly meetings. They do water cooler meetings. Just a fantastic organization. So highly recommend K-12 CISSP.
Thanks. And I know with everyone joining WGU cyber clubs and having those opportunities to connect, I think with our sessions and sessions like this, it's a great opportunity to connect with other students and other alum by adding your LinkedIn to the chat or connecting that way. So I wanted to ask Andy, would you mind if I shared your LinkedIn profile with those who registered for the session, just if they have any questions to connect?
Yeah, please do. And so like one of the things about me, and I think that you'll find about a lot of people who are in K-12 technology, is that we're really, really, we really value improving the community, sharing with the community, and working with the community. So, there are roles, there are industries where, you're very secretive about what you do. You don't want to help other people. Education, K-12 in particular, is very much a team sport. And so I love connecting with people. I love, shooting ideas back and forth. I love brainstorming. I love all the things. So educator at heart, and I love sharing. So yeah, please do.
Great. And I'll add LinkedIn to the follow-up email with the recording as well. But feel free to drop your LinkedIn if you want to network with others that are in the session, or just to follow up later on. It's definitely great. So we do have a few more minutes before we conclude the session. So if you have a question, go ahead and drop your question in the chat, or even use the raise your hand function. I do see that we have some thank yous in the box. So Joey as well, super impressive. You got your master's degree so fast. I'm about to finish my own master's. Congratulations, Joey. I want to stop there. In cybersecurity this week. So I've been working on it since May. Congratulations, Joey. Definitely a task that we don't take lightly, just based on the effort that you put in. So I want to say congratulations to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have Storm. Storm, thank you to both of you, Andy. Appreciate you for sharing your experience and transitioning from a different field in cyber. Interesting and informative. Much appreciation. Congratulations on your accomplishments. All right, and we have Carol. Thank you. So that's great. I see that everyone kind of enjoyed the session, providing a great insight into cybersecurity, but also the K-12 school district. So I am going to give a few minutes before we wrap up, but Andy, would you like to say anything as we conclude the final of the session?
Yeah, I'll just take another shameless plug. I also have a website that I blog, K-12 educational technology stuff. I'll just throw it in the chat real quick. It's edtechirl.com, edtech in real life. And basically it's me and my sysadmin, my former 7th grade student. We just write articles about cool stuff that we do, or things that we find, or things we worry about. And we post there. We it's seasonal. So especially K-12 schools are very seasonal. So we have 10 insanely busy months a year and 2 less busy months a year. And so like our pattern kind of follows some of the busy, crazy times, but we've got about 200 articles up, and it's a really fun way to share. So shameless plug.
No, go ahead. I think just with that information and just hearing you speak, I know that you provide some great insight and some other information that people may want to stay up to date on, even if it's just like your local information, or just K-12 based. That definitely would be appreciative from anyone who actually goes and reviews those resources there. Okay.
Yeah, and a huge believer in the value of home labs and home labbing, and making projects, sharing projects. And so we try to post some ideas there too, on like things that you can do in your home lab, things you can do to build the resume. Definitely, if you're not already doing things on your own in your home lab, encourage you to, that's a very proactive, concrete step you can take to start preparing to either build resume, gain skills, build your brand, have something to share. Love geeking out about home labs.
Gotcha. All right, great. Does not look like we have any other questions here. So just a reminder, everyone, this session was recorded. It will go out to you here in the next 24 hours to your email. Be on the lookout for that. We'll also include a survey. So just to tell us how we did in the session, we value your opinion and use that information to better our future sessions. I would love to say thank you, Andy, for joining us and sharing your background and your expertise. We enjoy having our alum give their perspective of their career and their journey. And to everyone, please stay tuned to any other sessions that we do have. We have a number of sessions going on today. So be sure to register for those sessions and any other sessions that we have for Cyber Week the rest of the week. I'd like to say thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you all.